Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. This is live stream number 995. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual. Around here, we just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, as well as take looks at games. Usually, every once in a while, I'll actually do a live review here on the show. It's pretty much every once in a blue moon. But tonight, we are actually going to have a bit of a War Game Wednesday. That's right. We're going to be taking a first look at a War Transformed from Osprey Games. This is a skirmish level, I believe it's a platoon level war game. It is kind of a mashup of the mythos and World War I and folk horror. That's what I hear. That's what I heard through the grapevine. So we are going to be taking a peek at this in just a bit. So if you are tuning in live to take part in the first look at a War Transformed, do want to mention we tackled the tabletop gaming news first around here. So it'll probably be about 35, maybe 40 minutes before we get on into peeking at a War Transformed. So if you're watching live, just kick back, put your feet up, relax. It's hump day. You're halfway to the weekend. Be good to yourself. Now, of course, if you tune in 30 minutes or more after this show has ended, there will be timestamps. So if you are an impatient type, you just gotta skip past tabletop gaming news. Although I always have cool news. I don't know why you'd skip it, but if you do want to skip it, you can. There will be timestamps in the show notes for you to utilize. And depending on what device you might be watching this on, those timestamps might be right there in the timeline of the video. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, because this is a live show, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you happen to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours, yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay, you can say howdy, or you can fire away with a question or a comment, or maybe there's something about a War Transformed you want a closer look at. By all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is our friend Kevin R. Smith, and Testy Trekkie is with us also. Very nice. Very nice. Welcome to you both. I'm going to take a guess. The Madman is probably running games this weekend. I think this falls into his Wednesday game night. But I would not be surprised if our friend Sarah D who just happens to be one of our chat moderators, might be lurking in the shadows. What evil lurks in the hearts of men, Sarah D knows. Roger Perdome is with us also. Good to see you, Roger. All right, let's jump on into the news because it's a War Game Wednesday. Let's talk about some War Game news. Because currently up on the GMT Games P500 pre-order list is the Russian Revolution game, Hammer and Sickle. Here's the scoop. Hammer and Sickle, Hunger and Utopia in the Russian Civil War, 1918 to 1921, say that 5 times fast, is a fast-paced, 4-player asymmetric game covering one of the most desperate and world-shaping conflicts of the 20th century, in which 4 competing ideologies battled for supremacy over the former Russian Empire. With the Tsarist Empire collapsing under the dual crises of World War I and Revolution, 2 fragile alliances emerged to fill the power vacuum. A revolutionary alliance of anarchists and Bolsheviks, and a counter-revolutionary alliance of new nations and the White Army. Yet only one faction will ultimately achieve victory through a combination of strategic resource management, negotiation, and choosing the right moment to bid everything for glory. Each season, players will alternate using action and commander cards to rally their forces, spread or clamp down on agitation and nationalism, and launch offenses into enemy territory. An event card played by each player at the start of the season will determine initiative order and have a unique effect on the game. While at the same, each of these players must gather food from the countryside each season, that's the sickles, to feed their factories, hammers, and generate firepower, or else risk agitation and eventual anarchist uprisings. After 6 seasons, the player who has completed the most objectives and whose alliance is most successful will be victorious, determining the fate of Russia. Hammer and Sickle allows players to experience the full sweep of the world-changing Russian Civil War in a single evening, while still allowing room for negotiation, scheming, and strategic experimentation. The players are grouped into 2 natural alliances of convenience, with the counter-revolutionary White Army and New Nations opposing the revolutionary Bolsheviks and anarchists. But these alliances are unstable and will collapse as soon as one player comes close to winning. Simple and innovative production and combat systems provide plenty to think about while not impeding gameplay. And historical event and objective cards ensure that every game will play out differently. A dedicated non-player system also allows for any combination of factions to be automated, supporting 1, 2, or 3 player games. Hammer and Sickle is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 2 to 3 hours, and you can reserve a copy for the pre-order price of $62. If this does go to print, and I believe it's about, I think it's got about 270, 280 orders at this point, it will carry an MSRP of $89. So pretty substantial savings there. I will also mention these are prototype cards you're looking at. It's a prototype board you're taking a peek at. So this is not necessarily the finished product you're taking a peek at. So there we've got that. Yes, Sarah D is with us. She is in the shadows with the banhammer, just in case. Kathy Evans is swinging on into chat as well. Welcome. All right, let's talk about some role-playing game news, because now up for crowdfunding as of yesterday over on Kickstarter is the Electric State role-playing game from Free League Publishing and Skybound Entertainment. Here's the skinny. A road trip on the verge of reality awaits. Go on a journey into the unknown. Free League Publishing has announced the crowdfunding campaign for the Electric State role-playing game is now live on Kickstarter. The Electric State RPG is, obviously enough, a tabletop role-playing game based on the narrative art book The Electric State by acclaimed visual artist and author Simon Stålenhag, soon to be adapted into a major motion picture by the Russo brothers, starring Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. The game is not about the goal, but the journey, what the characters experience and how it changes them. This is a game of exploration, but that which is explored is yourself and your friends, and what you're willing to do when the world collapses around you. The highly anticipated role-playing game, which once again features art by Simon Stålenhag, originally made for an art book project, but was never before published. And of course, it's already rocked past its funding goal. So there are also support for virtual tabletops, bonus stretch goals, and more. Now, there is a short video. It's about a minute long. And this will give you a better look at least some of the artwork from the Electric State role-playing game. The Kickstarter for the Electric State role-playing game has already crushed its funding goal. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover with PDF for a pledge of approximately $48, or grab just the PDF alone for a pledge of approximately $24 through December 20th. Expected delivery is next November. As Tessie Trekkie points out, the Electric State role-playing game has a big question of what in the bloody hell do the player characters actually do? But they still backed it because they love everything that Free League does. And yes, this is not the same setting, as far as I know, as Tales from the Loop. Interesting. Interesting. I have to admit, I always find Simon Stålenhag's artwork to be really unique, pretty wild, sometimes a little goofy. Not too often, just sometimes. Like, we're taking a peek at the interiors for the core rulebook, and there's like this giant rubber duck that looks like it's been shipped away with automatic fire or something. I don't know. But to me, that's a little, again, that's a little bizarre. It's a little strange there. But nonetheless, there it is. There's the giant rubber duck. It's like, okay. I don't know, alien invaders? Is that what's going on? Is that why the world has collapsed? I am not familiar with this art book. Kevin King has joined us tonight. Good to see you in chat. Moving right along, arriving in March is Pathfinder 7 Dooms for Sandpoint. Whoa, wait a second. Wrong news. Hold on a minute there, Bob Louie. I was going to share this news piece, but unfortunately, I couldn't find the pre-order for it. So here we go. Once again, arriving in March is Pathfinder 7 Dooms for Sandpoint. And here's the latest from Paizo Inc. Kevin R. Smith says, that's not a Pathfinder product. Back where it all began, this special double-sized volume presents a full adventure path in a single massive 200-page book to celebrate the 200th volume of the Pathfinder Adventure Path. The town of Sandpoint has seen more than its fair share of danger and trouble over the years, including harrowing fires, prolific serial killers, goblin raids, and attacks by giants and dragons. But what faces the so-called Light of the Lost Coast is the greatest threat yet. Something sinister has been manipulating events all along, and now a new band of heroes must step in to save this legendary small town from 7 deadly dooms. Return to the town where it all began with the 7 Dooms for Sandpoint Adventure Path, a full campaign for 4th to 11th level characters that's presented in its entirety in this supersized volume. 7 Dooms for Sandpoint also includes an updated snapshot of Sandpoint as it stands today, complete with ways to interact with and influence the townfolk. More Thessalonian secrets, exciting new treasures, and a bestiary of dangerous new monsters round out this milestone adventure path volume. This unforgettable 200-page hardcover edition of the epic 200th volume of the Pathfinder Adventure Path comes complete with an exclusive double-sided poster map of the town of Sandpoint and its environs to set the scene for high adventure. The 200-page hardcover will carry an MSRP of $69.99. There will be a softcover edition that will be available for $54.99. Gotta be honest, I do not know if this will be available in PDF right off the bat. Maybe so, maybe not. And the reality is the only image that I'm sharing that is from this upcoming release is the cover. So I am just sharing some Paizo artwork for Pathfinder as well as a shot of Sandpoint. So I've got that for you. But yes, this image you're looking at right here is the only image that is currently available outside of the cover artwork for 7 Dooms for Sandpoint. And yes, Sandpoint is the location that the Rise of the Rune Lords adventure path kicked off back in 1st edition Pathfinder, and that was Pathfinder Chapter 1. So, pretty wild. Pretty wild. And of course, this is for 2nd edition Pathfinder, or Pathfinder Remastered, whatever you want to consider it now. And that means it is, if I remember correctly, I think the timeline for 2nd edition Pathfinder is 100 years later than 1st edition Pathfinder, if I remember correctly. Gotta remember, I had almost no experience whatsoever with 1st edition Pathfinder. So as Kevin R. Smith says, back to where it all started, Sandpoint. Yes. Very, very nice. Kevin R. Smith says they think Rise of the Rune Lords was actually for 3.5. Would that have been from the Dungeon Magazine days? Because I do understand, once again, this is something I was not part of, I was not privy to back in the D&D 3.5 days or 4th edition days either. But I do understand that Paizo Inc. actually got its start. Eric Mona pretty much started Paizo Inc., and they were the publisher of Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine, although Dragon, I believe, outlasted Dungeon. And of course, yes, there is a digital version of Dragon Magazine, but I think it's like just an ampersand symbol. I'm not sure if they're still releasing that either for 5e. So, Kevin, I don't know, to be honest. All I know is that I actually started running. Yes, I started running the first chapter of the Rise of the Rune Lords. Just poured it over to my own, rules light. And we only got one session in with my nephew and his friends because his friends were just absolutely impossible to ever get together at the same time again. Kevin R. Smith says, I think it was the first Pathfinder adventure path, but they lost Dungeon Magazine before 4E came out. There was this period when they were writing for 3.5, but not in Dragon and Dungeon. Wild Hunter is with us. Good to see you. Saying Dungeon Magazine was a goldmine of great scenarios. Yes, and it was also a cesspool of a lot of trash adventures. So, sorry to say. Gotta be honest. Gots to be, and I'm not talking about what Paizo published it. I'm going back to TSR days too. There were some good moments and there were some not so great moments. Just like I always felt the Dragon was a far better magazine when it wasn't a house organ simply for TSR, where they could legitimately provide a review of another role-playing game without automatically, giving it a negative review because, I could possibly compete with something from TSR. All righty then, final news piece. Now available in print and PDF from Monte Cook Games is Numenera of the Glimmering Valley. And this is what I know. The perfect starting point for discovering the Ninth World. Nestled in the thick forest of the Glimmering Valley, a few dozen buildings surround an ancient structure and a pair of crystal monoliths. This village of Neandrin enjoys a peaceful agrarian life. The bold or restless might occasionally head into the woods to find the dreaming cubes. Dreaming cubes, huh? Going and getting that from their dealer or something? Or see the river ring, or maybe visit the old witch in the infinite abode. But the distant city of Courage and the wide world beyond it, the wide world of sports beyond it, are little more than rumors carried by the occasional visitor. The Ninth World is vast, strange, and intimidating, but big adventures sometimes start small. Launch your Numenera campaign in this vibrant and relatable home place, filled with detail and life. Establish relationships and backstory and ground your game in an immersive world. Then venture out into the Glimmering Valley and begin to discover the wonders, treasures, and dangers of the Ninth World. Follow the path of adventure or explore the region's sandbox style. As your characters grow in capability, players and GM alike are introduced to what makes the Ninth World so unique and compelling. And when you're ready, head out of the Glimmering Valley, prepared as players, game masters, and characters to face the vast, awe-inspiring world of Numenera. In the Glimmering Valley, you'll find a richly detailed locale to launch a new campaign filled with interesting and dynamic NPCs, situations, and locations. A chapter designed specifically for the players to immerse them in this vibrant setting and help them create characters truly at home in the Ninth World. Loads of adventure to get your campaign off to an exciting start. follow the plot threads, or explore the vast sandbox of the Glimmering Valley. There's an easy on-ramp to the broader Ninth World that helps players and GMs discover what makes Numenera such a compelling setting. Fantastic for players who are experiencing Numenera for the first time. There's also loads of new creatures, ciphers, artifacts, and more. This 128-page hardcover, and I gotta be honest, I have been hearing conflicting page counts. I've seen one that says it's 144 pages, and then I saw another that says it's 128. But regardless of the page count, that hardcover is available now. It does carry an MSRP of $44.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $17.99. I gotta be honest, I wish I knew more about Numenera. I reviewed the first edition core book when it came out. I remember somebody in the PR department for Monte Cook Games had reached out. Granted, this is over 10 years ago. And I thought it was pretty cool. It didn't reinvent the wheel. I know there was a lot of talk about, oh, how revolutionary it was. I don't know about that. But as far as the setting went, I found that to be pretty interesting, pretty unique as far as fantasy settings go. More of kind of a science fantasy sort of world, almost along the lines of like Hawkmoon. I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with that series of books from Michael Moorcock. Sort of along those lines. Kevin R. Smith says, this is actually something Numenera needed. The setting info in the core books is a lot to sift through to find what you want to run. Kevin R. Smith also points out, I want it too. I wonder what it costs in PDF. For me, I only really want hard copies for player-facing information. Kevin King says that they do want the Glimmering Valley as soon as the wife's book buying ban lifts. Kevin King also says they were a prig about it in the 1980s. They banned dragon and dungeon content from their table. I did know some people who, at their game table, they would not allow anything from Dragon magazine. So when Dragon rolled out, like the anti-paladin and stuff like that, I was like, nope, no. Kevin King says that Numenera reminds them a bit of Dying Earth. Yeah, I could see that. I could certainly see that. So Wild Hunter says Hawkmoon is a great book series. I like the basic role-playing boxed set. I remember that back in the day because Elliot actually ran Stormbringer, ran it a wee bit. But yes, of course, I ran most of the role-playing games at that point in time. But every once in a while, Elliot would run Stormbringer because it was essentially, if other people didn't run games every once in a while, it was like, I'm not running any Call of Cthulhu. Sorry. You got to give me a game session where I get to play. And that would tide me over for a couple of months of running Call of Cthulhu. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, Wargame Vault, any of the One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always swing on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can always buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Delicious. Actually, relatively tasteless because I drink diet soda that has no caffeine, no sodium. So it's all right. I've gotten used to it. Anyway, thank you to all of those out there who use the banner ads and or stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang. It is much appreciated, everybody. Really, really do appreciate that. Also, once again, if you happen to make a donation towards the laptop fund, which if you haven't been following along, I did get a new laptop. I got a Black Friday deal. It was on that Saturday, but I still got a Black Friday deal on the Lenovo Legion 5 Slim, which you'll be seeing some work that I've done on it with the brief intermission that's coming up. But if you did donate, please send me an email to jeffmcaleer@thegaminggang.com. I have a special gift for you. Roger Prudhomme can attest to the gift. And if you're into role-playing games, you will definitely dig it, I would think. If you have no interest in role-playing games, it's not going to be your bag of tricks. So there is that. Anywho, so I had mentioned I was at the doctor yesterday, just typical follow-up, with my general practitioner, and got my test results back. Everything looked good. Better than some of them have looked in the past. Amazingly enough, my cholesterol is low. It was like, what? Because I guess your cholesterol is supposed to be 100 to 199. Mine was 96. But unfortunately, my good cholesterol was also low. But everything else was bang, spot on, right in the normal area. I did mention that I had some imaging done of my back because I've been having some issues with my sciatic nerve. And that came back, basically said there were, no tears or anything like that. And it was the minor deterioration due to age. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Thanks. So there is that. But knock on wood, everything's all good for now. One of these days, I got to go see my cardiologist. I don't recall. I could have swore that she told me that at this point in time, I only have to see her once a year. But it's been about 8 months. So, hey, the other thing that I should probably mention, my general practitioner was very proud of me, which is unusual because most doctors, their bedside manner is not the greatest anymore these days. But I had lost 16 pounds since the last time I had seen her. I was like, holy cow. I don't feel like I've lost 16 pounds. I know I've lost a little bit of weight. But yeah, 16 pounds. I was like, holy cow. Very nice. Very nice. Anyway, the other thing I want to mention, I was talking about this last night when I was sharing the Paizo Inc. Starfinder adventure news. And then I forgot to get into it after the news. So I know a lot of people out there have been wondering what's going on with Paizo Inc. I have not shared any coverage of any of the releases since October. I think the last shipment of anything came in late September. And I had all these items kind of like stacking up in what was called the side cart on their website, looking at orders and stuff like that. And I was thinking, what's going on here? Because I had gotten the PDFs for the 2 remastered books. But if you follow the Gaming Gang, my style is I like to share first looks on camera with you, normally live. And I hadn't really peeked much into the PDFs because I want to be surprised looking through it. But still, it's been so long. I know there are a few of you out there who ordered the remastered books and you have them. You received them. But I hadn't gotten the latest chapter of the adventure path that had begun, that I had reviewed the first chapter of. So it was all this stuff just kind of stacking up. And the weird thing too was I wasn't getting any digital files, because normally what Paizo does is they give me the PDFs and they ship out the physical releases. And then I also get the Pathfinder and Starfinder Society adventures. I mentioned that yesterday. So it was weird. I was like, well, what's going on? And I had heard that there had been some backups, I guess, with their warehouse and things like that. So I started writing an email to Aaron Shanks, who used to be my marketing contact with Paizo, but he got promoted. But, every time I would see him at a convention and that, he was always, excited to see me, very appreciative of the coverage that Paizo gets from the Gaming Gang and things like that. And I now deal with a different marketing person who, to be honest, I have no idea what they think of the coverage from the Gaming Gang. Might like it, might not give a shit about it. It might dislike it. I don't know. So I started writing this email, and it was just to ask, what was going on? Did Paizo not want me to cover the releases anymore? I mean, they could tell me, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's too bad. But I wouldn't be like, hey, damn you. And then I thought, you know what? I better check real quick, because the other reason I was actually writing Aaron was I had sent a couple of emails to customer service, because the new marketing person, I had told him, I haven't even seen the digital releases for any of this. And they said, reach out to customer service. So I sent a couple of emails and hadn't heard anything back. So, it wasn't going to be a nasty email. It was just, have I gotten lost in the shuffle or something like that? I don't know. And then I thought, well, you know what? Before I send this, I gotta go and just double check the order, see if it's all still. Sure enough, I had an email from Paizo, from their warehouse, saying, hey, you know what? We're really sorry. We had some problems, blah, 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 and your stuff is falling through the side. They had all the digital stuff in there. They had everything. And actually, as of today, the order shipped, and I think there's like 8 items in it. And I'm like, well, I not gonna send that email. I don't need to send it anymore. So Roger Perdomo is rocking on out and says, yes, they can testify that the goodies I have to give you, if you are a contributor to the laptop fund, is pretty great. Okay. So that is what's going on with Paizo. We will be seeing those Paizo releases shortly. Probably going to be ending up sharing the first looks as standalone videos. Because the last thing I wanted to mention is I'm bouncing around episode 1000 being the last episode of the year, because it falls like 2 days before I would take my week break between Christmas and New Year's anyway. And I just think kicking off the new year with episode 1001 kind of has a nice ring to it. As opposed to, oh, hey, Happy New Year, everybody. This is episode 1003. It's like, okay. So just floating that out there. Don't be surprised if that's what I decide to do. And as far as episode 1000 goes, I do believe I am going to do an AMA and Ask Me Anything, but I need questions to be sent. Now, granted, I'll answer questions that pop up in chat during the show, but I need some questions emailed to me ahead of time so we actually have something going on. So, Roger Perdome says, for a guy who got all his shots yesterday, I look great. I'll tell you what, this is where I got the shingle shot. Oh, man, it is painful as hell. This is where I got the flu shot. There's a little, a little spot, almost feels like you got a bruise there. This is like, holy, what the hell? But yeah, I feel fine. I felt fine all day. I was a little concerned because I had heard, that shingle shot, that second follow-up shot can kind of kick you in the ass, but I'm feeling all right. So we are going to be diving on in to take a look at a War Transformed from Osprey Games in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
There's a place in town that has 12 terrific glasses for the 12 days of Christmas. And every time you buy a medium-sized Pepsi for only 59 cents, you get to keep the glass it comes in. And here's the nicest part of the whole offer. There are only 2 glasses every week, so you have to keep coming back to get the whole set. And you know why that's so nice? Because the place you have to keep coming back to is Taco Bell.
What happened to my car?
Do you drink Wilkins coffee?
No, so what?
Well, things seem to happen to people who don't drink Wilkins.
This is a motion picture trailer. Running time, 1 minute, 50 seconds. You've seen many of them. Usually, they're to show you scenes from a new picture. This one is different. You're seeing a reenactment of a true-life tragedy. On a motion picture set, tragedy, of course, is make-believe. The actors can walk away from it, because it never really happened to them. In our own lives, we can't. We can only try to prevent it. Now, the tragedy in point is tuberculosis. Thousands of Americans died of TB last year, needlessly. These TB victims were unlucky, because TB can be prevented. And here's how. Each of us can help cut ourselves right out of the TB picture with Christmas seals. to fight tuberculosis. Now, no collection is made in any theater for Christmas seals. They're mailed in a letter from your Tuberculosis Association to your home. And in the privacy of your home, you decide if you want to contribute. I hope you will. And why? Because progress in the fight against TB, since the very first Christmas seal was sold, has meant a saving of more than 8.5 million lives. Now that's a lot of people to save from the tragedy of tuberculosis. To them, and to many of us, TB may never seem real. But to someone, every 6 minutes, every day, tuberculosis is something that is suddenly happening. Now it could be any one of us. Poor, rich, race, age, or sex make no difference. These do. Answer your Christmas seal letter today. Thank you.
Yes, that was back in the day when gas stations would close at night. Where Santa Claus is at the 76th station. It's actually somebody dressed as Santa Claus who were robbing the gas station. Jack Hanks is with us. I'm not sure if I said hi to Jack or not. So welcome. Kevin R. Smith says Wilkins is a mob enforcer now. Nice car you got. It'd be a shame if something happened to it because you didn't drink Wilkins coffee. Yeah, Wilkins, you got a nice family there, good-looking family. I'd hate to see anything happen to them because you don't drink Wilkins coffee. All righty, so we're going to jump on in and take a look at A War Transformed from Osprey Games. It is designed by Frederick Silburn Slater with artwork provided by Demetrius Martinos. This 224-page hardcover is available now, carries an MSRP of $35, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $24.50. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got A War Transformed. It's actually World War I on the Doggerland Front. A few things to mention before we dive on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Osprey Games were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the gaming gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's very important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to get a good feel for what we're going to find inside A War Transformed. So let's take a look at the back here. 1916. As the Great War raged, the moon fell from its orbit. Seas shifted, uncovering new lands and revealing what tide and time had concealed. The moon's descent also heralded the terrifying resurgence of magic. Long-forgotten gods and spirits began to stir in hidden groves and caverns, and old traditions found new strength. Soon, stone circles echoed once more with the chanting of ancient rituals, and menhirs were again bedecked with wildflowers and presented with offerings of honey and blood. 1918. Rival nations battle on new fronts, seeking dominance with weapons of spell, song, and sacrifice. Thrust to the surface, Doggerland, the ancient bridge between Britain and Europe, becomes a crucial battleground in the conflict. In this alien landscape, raiding parties pick through the ribs of wrecks and the ruins of lost villages. War machines, festooned with totems and fetishes, roll over the brittle bones of long-dead giants, and cavalry charge across the verdant plains of this mystical new land. A War Transformed is a platoon-sized skirmish war game set in a world where World War I was utterly changed by forces far beyond human comprehension. Players command small forces of infantry, cavalry, artillery, and other stranger troops on the Doggerland Front. A War Transformed contains all the rules required to play, including army lists for the British, French, German, and Russian forces, as well as the American Foreign Legion and the Free Corps. Also included are a host of scenarios and rules for rituals, the dark magics and secrets that could turn the tide of this war. It is a game of rifle and relic, of bayonet and belief, of machine gun and magic. All right, let's dive on in here. As with just about all of the Osprey Games books that we've encountered over the years, very solid construction, good paper stock as well. So it's going to tell us what is in this book. A War Transformed is a fast-paced skirmish war game set in an alternate reality where the First World War is changed utterly by forces far beyond human understanding. Be warned, players expecting an accurate simulation of First World War combat, or even those opposed to the occasional anachronisms, I gotta say, this font's kind of small, will find themselves disappointed. Well, obviously enough. I mean, this is kind of a full core war game. Can't be expecting to have, a simulation of World War I. So it looks like this is going to give us some of our background of what is going on. Oh, there we go. It's the Wicker Man. Well, well, well. I have to say, I've seen some of the artwork for this, and it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Kevin King says, introducing a flat plane between the German army and London could ruin British prospects. I would certainly think so. So let's take a look here. Collecting and modeling. Key principles and definitions. What is a unit? In a War Transformed, every model is part of a unit. Sometimes a single model will be a unit unto itself, but many units are made up of a group of models with similar training, armaments, and constitutions banded together. A group of models performs actions as one, shooting at the same target, moving in concert with one another, and fighting in vicious hand-to-hand combat together against the same enemies. So we're showing unit cohesion. A multi-model unit must maintain some semblance of a formation throughout a game of A War Transformed. All models within a unit must remain within 1 inch of at least one other model in the unit to maintain cohesion, and no two models in a unit can have more than 6 inches between them. So this is okay. That is not. Neither is that, because this is supposed to be 6 inches across. Some units are composed of a single model. Generally, this will be a character model or a vehicle, but may sometimes be a group of models on a single base, such as a gun crew or a procession of religious celebrants. To all intents and purposes, these models should be considered to be a unit in every respect, even though it's a single model and not a group of models. So we're getting our base sizes. So individual infantry, no larger than 25 millimeter diameter. Cavalry is 50 millimeter diameter. So weapon teams, 75. Behemoths, 75 millimeter to 150 millimeter, which is bigger than tanks. Well, well, well. So we've got unit characteristics. So we've got pace, martial skill, zeal, wounds, saving throw. So obvious pace is movement. Martial skill is combat, both close combat and range. Zeal is their bravery and staying power. Wounds, obviously enough, is how many hits they can take before being removed, and then a saving throw is a measure of a unit's ability to avoid damage that would otherwise cause a wound. Looks like we get some additional notes in these little boxes here. So now we're getting advantage and disadvantage. Just trying to see. So advantage modifies the result of a die roll down. So this is a roll under. Whereas disadvantage modifies results up. So it's a modifier as opposed to, say, in role-playing games where it's like, oh, you've got advantage. You're rolling 2 dice, take the best. Oh, you've got disadvantage. Roll 2 dice, take the worst. Here it's just advantage and disadvantage is just simply modifiers to the die. I'm not sure what kind of die you're rolling, though. A 10? I'm taking a guess. Essential items, dice. Oh, you get a few. D3, D4, D6, D10. Aha. Also scattered dice for grenades and things like that that miss their targets. So we've got different phases. So we have the command phase, close combat sub-phase, including combat resolution, compulsory moves. I would take a guess that'd be if a unit breaks and they're fleeing, and maybe even a unit pursuing. Elite phase. Oh, we have a cannonade phase, elite phase, and line phase. Mindless units. Competing for round priority. In a war transform, players face off at the start of each of the 4 phases to determine who is going first. They do this by bidding with dice. Each player is allocated 1 d6 activation die at the start of each phase with which to contest priority activation. They may also choose to spend some of their command tokens, exchanging them for additional activation dice, in order to improve their chances of winning priority activation. If they wish to do so, players may convert as many of their command tokens to activation dice as they like. At the start of each phase, players declare how many dice they intend to bid for priority activation. The player who has priority activation in the preceding phase declares their intentions first, with the first player to declare in the very first round at the beginning of the game decided by a coin flip. Once you've decided how many activation dice you're bidding, it's time to roll. Total the value of all the activation dice you rolled after any modifiers granted by special rules. And the winner is the player with the highest result. Note that this means it is theoretically possible for just 1 dice to beat a whole slew of others. So always be careful not to overstretch yourself. It may not pay off. So it says, in the event both players get the same score while rolling their activation dice, the player who had priority activation in the previous round goes first. Wow, that's interesting, because I would have thought for sure it'd be the player who did not. But I guess that's more along the lines of keeping momentum going. So activating units. So the way it's looking is that you would activate whatever units are eligible to activate in a particular phase all at one time based on whose side they're on. Jack Hank says the artwork's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So it doesn't look like it's I move or activate a unit, you activate a unit. At least that's not what it appears to be. That doesn't mean that's not how it is. I'm just saying it's. So here it looks like this is movement info. Oh, that's cool. So compulsory moves, broken units, there you go. So they're fleeing. Yes, that is a compulsory move, which I would figure it would. Oh, okay. So if a unit makes a compulsory move into a friendly unit, they come to an immediate stop, no matter how many inches they would normally move. Okay. So it looks as if they run into another unit, they're not possibly breaking that unit or causing, say, like a morale check. It just seems like they're bolstered by the other unit. All right, so it looks like here we've got combat, talking about line of sight, facing. I would take a guess that your individual infantry and your infantry and your cavalry probably have a 360-degree facing. Probably just the bigger units like vehicles and things like that. So here we've got our shooting tables. So we've got standard issue, must be just the grunts. Low martial skill, medium martial skill, and high martial skill. And high martial skill actually has the opportunity to score a critical hit on a natural 1. Remember, rolling low is good for this. So we got close quarters, machine guns, anti-tank rifles, high explosives. And we get into terrain. I'm most curious about the strange abilities and things like that, which we're going to get into here. Abilities, rituals, manifestations. So rituals are magical rites that can be performed to give special bonuses to your units or hinder the units of your opponent. Then we have orders. Actions or instructions that officers can give to units, such as letting them to activate out of sequence. That it's like, I don't think the grammar on that is correct. Such as letting them activate out of sequence is what I think it should read. Then we have manifestations, an effort to call through the veil, one of the many creatures awakened by the shattering. I wonder if, I think the company is called Northwind Miniatures. They tend to produce a lot of miniatures for the Osprey Games titles. I wonder if they're the company making the minis for A War Transformed. I'm a little surprised we're not seeing any images of miniatures. It's all artwork so far. Okay, so we get orders. So we have orders like clear them out, silence those guns, break their lines, keep firing. Then we have faction-specific orders. So German Empire, load K bullets. American Volunteer Legions, fanning. Any unit of gunslingers within 10 inches of the leader generates an additional D4 shots in any shooting attacks made in the coming round. Roll separately for each unit. Russian Empire, for the honor of the Tsar. So here are our vehicles. The Curse of Iron. So iron has an effect on creatures and witches. So here we've got keywords, which confer special rules on a unit. So we got bloodthirsty, body armor, open top, undisciplined, vanguard, a wisp. A wisp is a thing of mist and shadows rather than a physical object. So now we got building a patrol. So we've got unique units which serve as commanders. So we've got captains, we've got witches, we've got lieutenants, and we got infantry, cavalry, vehicles, and creatures. This doesn't appear to be too crunchy, to be honest. I mean, you figure your standard units only have 5 stats to them. Like I said, I like the artwork, but I would have liked to have seen some miniatures, some images of miniatures here. So we have mindless units, the Herod. With the rise of magic, such terrors exist on the front that even seasoned veterans turn their backs and flee. These men do not lack for courage. They suffer from one fatal human flaw, the instinct for self-preservation. So the Herod are little more than dolls, crude representations of human beings made in wood, clay, or some other spiritually conductive material. Much like a corpse, these marionettes can be animated with the spirits of the recently deceased and sent against the foe with an eerie creak and clatter. Regardless of their origins, Herod are used by commanders to screen their more valuable troops. Soaking up machine gun fire like sponges, they will continue to advance until they are literally torn to shreds. Aha. Wild Hunter says, it reminds them of Achtung Cthulhu. Although we really don't have any mythos going on here. So we've got our unique units. The A7V, a clumsy, lumbering behemoth. The A7V is an imperfect response to the more refined, super heavy tanks used by the British. However, it is still more than capable of being used as an armored fist to punch through enemy lines while protecting and supporting advancing infantry. See, in situations like this where we have some unusual sort of units, I would have liked to have seen an image. I'm sure we can probably find one online of a miniature for the A7V. So we've got May Queens. Festooned with flower garlands and bedecked in the gifts of the new season, May Queens personify the vibrancy of the season of growth. These handmaidens of the Trunic goddess serve as her heralds, ushering in the new season, but also as executioners of her divine will, scything their way through victims, both willing and otherwise. As the world falls increasingly deep into environmental collapse and the need to secure fertility becomes more acute, the May Queens have found their way onto the battlefields of the transformed war. Possessed by the vital spirit, in battle, May Queens lead fighters in their ecstatic dance. Whirling and twisting as they advance, they present a difficult target for defenders who must watch aghast as they approach with alarming speed, the air alive with the hum of swinging sickles. When they close with the enemy, they become a blur of violence, dispatching enemies with a preternatural and deadly grace. Cool. Quantum Phase Dragon is with us in chat. Good to see you, QPD. It's very intriguing. So here we got our American Volunteer Legion units. So just giving us the various different units that the Americans would use. There's our Russian Empire units. So we got the Shaman, conscripts, Cossacks. And now these are scenarios. Yep. Some optional rules. Engagement. There was trench raid, no man's land recovery, the big push. Gas, gas, gas. And we've got weapon reference. Now, one of the things I'll mention, this is the cover artwork, which I really like. The dog's got a gas mask on. And this is something that just has to be mentioned when we're taking a look at Osprey Games releases, is the fact that you don't really know what kind of support their games are going to get, because a lot of times we get a core rulebook and then that's it. Now, there are exceptions to that. Of course, the biggest exception would be Frostgrave. I mean, there's a lot of content out there for Frostgrave. Gaslands got a core, well, it got a second edition. There's also a supplement to that. Jackals, the role-playing game, I believe has a third or fourth book that's out. So there are some Osprey games that get ongoing support. A lot of them don't. A lot of them, like I said, just get a core book and that's it. This looks really unique as far as its style. I would hope to see that this is not just a one and done for Osprey Games. And of course, I am going to have a review of A War Transformed in the very near future. All right, that is it for this time out. Tomorrow night, we're going to dive on in. We're going to unbox and take a first look at Age of Wonders Planetfall from Hobby World and Arcane Wonders. Like I said, pretty lightweight box. I think this might be card-based. Not positive, but it is, of course, based on the hit PC game, or just a video game in case it is out there for consoles. So that'll be on tomorrow's show. And then don't forget, next week, all next week is Everyday Heroes Week. So on Tuesday's show, I will dive on in to the 460 plus, if I remember correctly, as far as the page count. Core rulebook. So you'll take a peek at this. I have heard some good things through the grapevine about this. Mostly positive stuff is what I have heard about the core rulebook. I've heard some quibbles about it, but yeah, some of it seems to be coming from the usual crank suspects out there. And then on Wednesday show, a week from tonight, we'll take a look at the Crow cinematic adventure as well as the Escape from New York cinematic adventure. And then a week from tomorrow, we'll dive on in and take a look at Rambo and Universal Soldier. So plenty of role-playing game goodness next week. Alrighty then. So if you were watching live, thank you very, very much. Of course, if you watched live and took part in chat, big tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company when I'm paging through a book or unboxing a game. So thank you very kindly for that. Of course, I know a lot of you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. Of course, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my recent review of the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition from Pinnacle Entertainment Group. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks very much for hanging out. And here's hoping you always have an opportunity to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.